First, I have a confession to make. I was asked to speak as an immigration lawyer. I am not an immigration lawyer. I am a criminal defense lawyer. And I represent a lot of traditional criminals. People that are accused of robbery, some cases murder, some cases burglary. I even do the occasional possession of alcohol under legal age for a few of the wrongfully accused students. A few of them might be guilty. But there's another qualitatively different type of client that I represent. And these are people who have unabashedly and clearly broken the law, but I think are completely morally and ethically justified in breaking that law. These cases start off a lot differently than my traditional cases. Usually these cases start off, they're federal felonies. And they start off when I get a husband waiting at my door Monday morning at 8 o'clock with a look of desperation in his eyes. And I know that you've all experienced difficult moments in your life. When you have the opportunity to meet a husband and look in his eyes and see the hurt and confusion about why his wife was picked up while she was doing the most back-breaking labor for 12 hours a day, and she's rewarded with someone in a black shirt, literally, I'm not making this up, showing up to her door and demanding to see identification and notifying her that she's likely to spend 2 years in prison. Why? Because she just wanted to work. I have a number of different clients, some of whom are mothers of 3, mothers of 4, and these people aren't criminals. They came here to work, to live, and to seek opportunity. You'd mentioned the fact that I don't look like I'm from Iowa, but I find this connection with a lot of my clients that is sort of interesting, because on the one hand, in case any of you haven't figured out, I'm not Latino. And yet I feel such a connection with the clients that I represent, and it is an absolute privilege to represent them. Because in their story, I see my own story. Maybe some of you descended from blue bloods, and maybe some of you have, kings and queens in your background, but that's not my story. My family story is the story of landless peasants, fishermen without opportunity, and people that didn't just come here. I've actually never been to Norway, but just imagine one of the most beautiful countries in Europe, some of the most breathtaking scenery. Can you imagine the pain they must have felt to have to leave? And now we see a similar thing happening with some of the most breathtaking, beautiful, culturally diverse countries like Guatemala, Nicaragua, Mexico, with roots going back thousands of years, where you see entire families moving from one place to another. And I see that connection that I have with them. And this isn't a new thing that you've heard. A lot of times people say, yes, but my family came here legally. We did it the right way. They're doing it the wrong way. Well, I would beg to differ with that. I think when you talk about coming here legally or not, I think you have to acknowledge one fundamental issue. And that is that legality is a function of one thing and one thing only, and that is power. Most of you that have probably studied history understand that one of the reasons why the United States controls the southwest portion of the United States is because it was a war split. And I think if you would ask the Sioux Nation whether the taking of the Black Hills was legal, I think that they would probably have a quite different perception of whether the immigration to their land was legal as well. So as I think we think about some of these issues, Professor Grey, I think, brought up a lot of the stats, the data, sort of the rational part of it. When you think about how you feel on immigration, one thing I want you to do is I want you to think about it, but I want you to think what you're feeling, because ultimately, regardless of all the stats you see, all the data that you see, ultimately, where you come down in immigration comes down to the emotional connection that you have with the individuals that you work with. So I'm not going to tell you how to think about this, but I do want you to confront it. I want you to actually read the assignments that your professor gives you. I want you to learn the language. I want you to interact. And I don't want you to just sort of reflexively jump to conclusions in terms of what the right or wrong approach to this, because it is a very tough issue. For me, as I said, I'm one of the 20%. I see that the richness that we've developed in this state as an absolute blessing. But not everyone sees it that way, and I'm actually Lutheran, I have to confess that at this point. But we get along now, don't we? Okay. But when I think of one of my personal heroes in this immigration debate, it is a woman who's about 5'2", and this woman, when we saw all the black helicopters flying a couple of years ago, and we saw all these guys with big beefy arms, and these guys are a lot better shape than I am after 10 years of practicing law. And her name was Sister Mary McCauley, and she almost single-handedly stopped the helicopters, stopped the guys in the black shirts, because she took away their moral legitimacy, and she said, what you are doing is wrong. And that just gutted their ability to do that. So that's the good news, is we no longer see this sort of militarization of immigration policy. But one thing we are seeing is that now it's one at a time. And I would venture to say, and this is not hyperbole, trust me, I would venture to say right now, as we speak, I'm not making this up, very likely there's probably a team of 6 to 8 law enforcement approaching a trailer, investigating. I get terrorized phone calls all the time from people saying, why are they here? There's a lot of Catholic lay people that come, and they say, what are they investigating? What have they done wrong? And it's still happening. And so as you go out into the professional communities, I want you to speak up, and I want you to think about it and develop it, because really, one individual voice of moral clarity can make a big difference in this immigration debate. Thank you.